I've got a unique slash interesting segment planned for today's show, and that is a dream playoff path for Cleveland, right? If I could pick the results in somewhat reason, because obviously I would just root for chaos, but what I would want to see happen for the Browns to be their best version of themselves and go all the way. So we're going to do that, and then I'll give you my actual predictions of what I think is going to happen at the end of the show. But let's look at the AFC playoff picture right now. So here's how things stand going into Week 18. We know the Ravens have locked up the 1 seed, so the Browns have nothing to play for in Week 18, which could lead them to resting some of their guys. However, there is a lot of things up in the air, right? The Jags, the Bills, the Colts, the Texans, and unfortunately, the Steelers are all still fighting for a playoff spot. Now, as for the NFC playoff picture, in case you're wondering, that is looking similar to the AFC, but it's a little bit more sewed up. You've only got 2 open spots right now. The Bucs could fall out of the number 4 spot altogether, and it could be Atlanta or New Orleans jumping all the way to 4. And the Packers are hanging on to the number 7 spot by a thread. But if they lose, we could see Seattle or New Orleans jump over them into the number 7 seed. So now let's look at my dream AFC playoff picture, right? I can't change those that are locked into their spots right now. But if I had to pick how Week 18 goes for the most optimal outcomes for the Browns, here's what I did. Ravens beat the Steelers. Fuck the Pittsburgh Steelers. Get them out of here. The Bills beat the Dolphins on Sunday Night Football to take the number 2 spot. I'll explain why in a little bit. The Chiefs stay at 3. The Jags beat the Panthers. They get the 4 spot. So Cleveland plays Jacksonville. The Dolphins get the 6th seed. And the Colts beat the Texans, and they get the 7th seed. Step number 1 for a dream playoff is the Browns beat whoever wins the AFC South. I don't want the rat poison out there of this is the team I want to face because it could be one of 3 teams coming out of the AFC South. But ultimately, the Browns beat all three teams. I would say the Jags game was one of the more comfortable wins. Like the Texans was by far more comfortable, but that was without C.J. Stroud. So that could be different with Stroud. The Colts was by far the closest, so I'm not really interested in running that game back, given that it was a 1-point game, although very different team now with Joe Flacco compared to P.J. Walker. But the Jags look broken. Do they not? So the Jags play the Titans in Week 18. If Jacksonville wins, they've got the number 4 seed locked up. They control their destiny. However, Tennessee is not a walkover team, right? They have looked dead the last couple of weeks, but they're still a Mike Vrabel coach team. Now, meanwhile, if Jacksonville loses that game, well, the other AFC South matchup could be for the division. Houston and Indianapolis. So that game could have a lot at stake. So let me know, who do you want to play? Of the 3 contending AFC South teams, who do you think shapes up for the best possible matchup for the Browns? I can be persuaded literally into all 3. And I don't want to definitively say I want that team because I know the moment I say that, the Browns are going to play them and lose to them, and I'm going to have to think about that for the rest of the year. So I'm not going to put that evil magic out there. But if I had to pick one, I go back and forth. But man, Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson are a good head coach quarterback combination. Jacksonville looks broken. Houston's probably the worst of all 3. Like their low is super low, but C.J. Stroud is playing as the best quarterback in the division right now. So good quarterback in the playoffs. That could be a recipe for disaster. Now, once the Browns defeat whoever wins the AFC South, we move on to the other wild card round matchups, right? And that is Browns beat whoever wins the AFC South. In my ideal dream scenario, the Dolphins beat the Chiefs, which I don't think is actually very outlandish, right? And I want Miami to lose to Buffalo because I don't want the Browns to go down to Miami. We saw how that went last year. It's tough playing in Miami in January when you are used to it being cold, and then you've got that hot Florida sun on you, and you get drained. And the Dolphins are good at home. I like to see the Dolphins be a road team in the playoffs, take down the Chiefs, get Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid out of the equation. And then the Bills, I know it's a bit of a stretch asking all 3 wildcard teams to win, but if you really think about it, here, hang out for me with a second here. Browns beating the AFC South champion is not that far-fetched. They beat every single team in the AFC South this year. The Dolphins beating the Chiefs are frauds this year. They really are. Would anyone be blown away if Kansas City lost? No. And then the Bills have been one of the flukiest teams. And Indianapolis has just been a really tough out for every single team that's played them this year. So the first two, I think, are more likely than even the last one, of course. But the Bills have been up and down this year. So in my dream, and that's what it is, it's my dream, it's not your dream. Maybe it's your dream too. Playoff scenario, these three things happen. So then we move on to the divisional round. And the Ravens are back from their bye, and they would play the number 7 Colts, which then puts the Browns on a path to host the Dolphins. I'd much rather host Miami than host Buffalo, right? The Bills, they know what it's like to play in the cold. Miami, those candy-ass teal uniforms in Cleveland in January, it's not going to happen. There's just no way. The Dolphins on the road against playoff teams this year have been a disaster. Get the Browns at home against the Dolphins. I like Cleveland's chances. And so in this case, then, we have a Browns-Ravens AFC Championship game. Joe Flacco, revenge game. Get your popcorn ready. You can't beat it. You just can't beat it. So that is the dream. We have more to come on this in just a second. But let me tell you all about our sponsor today, which is GameTime. You guys should not have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. GameTime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. If you're trying to catch, let's say, a Browns playoff game, whether that's home or on the road, or you want to see another sporting event. Like, let's say you live in the Cleveland area and you want to go catch a Cavs game. Hopefully they kind of get their act together here in the second half of the season. Well, there's nothing better than a spur-of-the-moment trip, and with GameTime, you can do that without breaking the bank. It's the place to find last-minute seats. What I also love about GameTime is you can see the view from your seat before you purchase your ticket. So you don't show up to the arena, the venue, the stadium. You're like, I had no idea I was this far up in the nosebleeds, or there would be a pole sitting right in front of me. So make sure you download the GameTime app and use code BROWNSCHAT for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code BROWNSCHAT for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now, couldn't you imagine going back to that dream playoff path? Joe Flacco playing the Ravens to go to the Super Bowl when Ravens fans know all too well just how good Flacco is in the playoffs specifically. That would be a dream matchup, whether that happens in the divisional round or the AFC Championship game. The whole world is rooting for a Browns-Ravens playoff game. Now we look at the NFC playoff picture, and right now we've got a lot of teams locked into spots. You know what I mean here? And I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of change up. So if we're getting really fun and we're looking at what a dream matchup could look like for the Browns to play someone out of the NFC, I don't want to play with my food too much here and start talking about which teams I want to face out of the NFC in the Super Bowl. Let's get to the Super Bowl first. But I don't want to see the 49ers a second time because we know how good they are. The Cowboys are playing their best football when it matters most. The Buccaneers, they're not going to make it. The Eagles look like they are sliding right now. But there is one team that I did not mention, and it's the team that everyone wants to see play the Browns in the Super Bowl, the Detroit Lions. How could you not want to see a Browns-Lions playoff? Browns-Lions Super Bowl. That would be the greatest Super Bowl in history. Two franchises that have never even reached the Super Bowl getting there for the first time and squaring up against one another. That is my dream playoff for the Cleveland Browns. And, of course, they hoist the Lombardi Trophy, and I do a polar plunge in Lake Erie. Don't worry. I did not forget about that bet. But let me know, what's your Super Bowl matchup prediction? I'm going to give you mine at the very end of the video, but let me know what your Super Bowl matchup prediction is down below in the comment section. So with that being said, let's look at what I believe is going to happen, right? This is like the ending to the movie Clue. What actually is going to go down? Well, here are my projections. I think we're going to see the Ravens, of course, have the 1 seed, the Bills and the Chiefs and the Jags, and the Browns, Dolphins, and Colts all make it there. And then we got out of the NFC, I think it shakes out like this. I think the Niners, well, I know the Niners. The Cowboys are going to get the 2 spot. The Lions get the 3 spot. They will rematch against the Rams. And then you've got the Bucks and the Saints. I think the Saints are going to win. I think the Bucks are going to win. And if those 2 things happen and a little bit of help elsewhere, you might have 2 NFC South teams make it. So this is my projections. And we'll kind of fast forward through the wild card matchups and whatnot and get right to the championship games here. AFC Championship game, give me Browns-Ravens, right? Let's actually go back to, we don't need to go back, but I think the Browns have a pretty strong path to get to the AFC Championship game. They got to take down the AFC South champ, and then you need one more win on the road against whichever team you end up facing, and I think we're going to have Browns-Ravens, okay? NFC-wise, I think we could have 49ers-Cowboys. This is must-see TV, and I ultimately think we're going to have a 49ers-Ravens Super Bowl. I'm very sorry. I refuse to be the homer that only picks his team to win every single week. But right now, these 2 teams are playing the best football. I mean, the Cowboys are right there with them. The Browns are up there too, for sure. But the Ravens are getting healthier. I think this is going to be your Super Bowl. And I hate myself. I do hate myself. And I don't want to be right. I'm not rooting for this. But gun to my head, I think it's going to be relatively chalk at the very end. The 2-1 seeds collide for a Christmas Day rematch.